Ashton, thank you for being back here again. We wanted to talk a little bit about technology and the use of technology. And the reason I wanted to pick your brain about it is because you have a son who's got higher needs. And I know that technology can be used in a very proactive way. And it can also be a crutch for many parents, and they may not even notice it. So we want to understand how can we best use technology and how we can help our children best use that.
Yes. Okay. So there are definitely negative effects to technology. You know, we see through the research and the brain studies of how it affects the brain. There's a lot of, radiation aspects that come out of it, and a lot of the addictive aspects that come out of it, that really create, a brain that is not as wired to be more curious and open and sort of in its more sort of automatic pattern. But it's interesting, like kids, I find that kids with higher needs tend to, so first of all, there's the unhealthy aspects definitely that we can all see, that our kids get addicted to it. They want to be on it. They fight for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can have a lot of battles around it, right? And, but to understand also the reason for that is because, first of all, they're the first generations kind of born into technology, right? And it is actually like they are wired like in their epigenetics, which is a layer on top of their genes. They're wired to just no technology like that. Like my child at 2 years old could work an iPad inside out. Now this was before I knew that all this technology was bad. And that when he was young, he had feeding issues. So I had him in front of the TV so that he would eat more. So like I literally wired his brain, right, to want, and it's naturally wired already. So that's why they become addicted so quickly. The second reason is that kids with like higher needs, like autism, ADHD, sensory issues, they may not have as much dopamine in their brain. So dopamine is a brain chemical that is released with reward. And we know as parents that when we go to look at we get a text, it's an immediate reward to go and look at it. We post something on Instagram and we get likes, it's an immediate reward, right? So that's like a reward hit. And so we know as parents how addictive devices can be. And so for these kids who have less dopamine in their system, these phones become and devices and TV, not as much TVs, but the devices become very addictive because they're like reward hits. And so it's to really look at that and go, okay, what's going on where my child is maybe not getting enough of that dopamine, the reward hit in other ways in their life. Maybe what they're doing is they're not feeling rewarded by it enough. Maybe they're not doing enough things that are interesting to them. Maybe they're not getting out in nature enough, getting that exercise and getting that natural high that gives that dopamine, reward and serotonin hit of chemicals. So if we're seeing that they really want to be on their devices a lot, to first understand that, there's a reason behind that, and then to maybe try and create other more rewarding scenarios, to the natural rewarding scenarios, not like giving them a reward for for doing their stuff or whatever, but things that are naturally exciting to them and rewarding to them. Okay. So finding that and working through that.
So it's important to know, as you said, there's negative side effects to screen time. We know that it affects the brain. It dumbs down our creativity side. It makes us more passive. We understand that. And in a way, because you said that this is the first generation that is really born in, like they are consumed in it. We don't really fully always understand the full effects just yet either, because this is the first generation that are fully encompassed in it. Yes. So often when I hear parents say, "Oh, well, I watched TV when I was young and I'm okay." Well, it was a very different kind of TV back then, and we were outside playing more back then.
And we didn't have Wi-Fi running around.
That's right.
Bleeping our system constantly.
Right. We didn't have access to it. And in one of the summit interviews with Jennifer Clary, she talks about how connection is the antidote to addiction. And when we talk about that dopamine, she talks about that as well. So it's important to know that we use TV. Everyone uses screen to
Yes.
get a break to, and it's fine. You can even watch the show with your child and interact with them.
Yes.
What are some other things that you could do? And you mentioned nature, and you
Yes.
got to really know that there is a long-term effect on your child when they are constantly on a screen, or
Yes,
when
the
that's their.
research has pretty conclusively shown that. Yeah.
Yes. And so what can parents do to help shift that? Because they may not see anything wrong with it. They may be like, okay, well, that's totally fine. They're happy. They're happy.
It's
They're playing
normal
on.
to them. It's natural to them, and they need a way to tune out. So, okay, a couple of things is what I would say. A couple of things. I agree 100% with the connection thing, where, you know, sometimes when my son is watching TV, I'll sit with him, and then we'll engage in a conversation with it. And so that's creating more active thinking for him. So that's, you know, that's really helpful. The other thing is like, is again, creating more exciting circumstances for them, you know, outside of TV that involve connection. So, you know, a lot of kids who are like, a lot of kids who have a lot of programming and they have a lot of stimulation, right? They don't, and they may not watch TV as much, but when they do, like, they really want to zone out on it because it's their way to relax. So to also understand that our kids are using TV as a way to relax. So if they've watched us do that, you know, maybe they have, maybe they haven't, because oftentimes kids take over the TV once they come into the family and the parents don't watch as much. But if they have watched that, we zone out and we're relaxing in front of the TV, they're using the TV or the devices as a way of tuning out, right, their stress. And so what this is, again, like helping a child to create more healthier ways of releasing their stress. By talking about it, by telling their stories, you know, asking them about their days if they're willing to talk about it, engaging in like mindfulness activities together. You know, we use like these mindfulness cards sometimes, and we each get to pick one out and we each do it together, and we have like a little bell that we ring. My son doesn't always want to do it, but we you know, incorporate that, breathing things, and then bringing in technology, since they love technology, bringing in technology that actually helps them to relax, and that can help them to rewire their brain, and using technology, you know, as a benefit. So as you know, we were talking about earlier, my husband's company called Unite has this IOM2 device. It's a biofeedback meditation device that involves gaming, and they're creating more games for kids. But right now there's some really, kids do like the games that they have already, which are it's a really like interesting technology where you attach this little clip to your ear, and it teaches you how to breathe in the zone of bringing your heart rate into the stress-free zone. So it's teaching you how to breathe to get yourself out of stress and into more parasympathetic, relaxed, you know, rest, repair, digest mode, where you feel more relaxed. And it's a great, you know, technology to use because you're watching a screen, and as you breathe in that zone, you know, the game goes according to the way it's supposed to go. And if you're not breathing in that zone, the game kind of goes offline. You're not staying on the path of the game. So it's really cool for kids in that way to get that feedback, and then they're learning, you know, how to breathe, and they get to use the screen. So that's a positive way to use the screen. You know, there are other companies that also have like different types of interactive biofeedback type of devices that help like rewire the brain. So that's a good way to use technology to really help a child, you know, de-stress. Of course we can use technology for learning too, but that's not always de-stressing. Like looking at the notion of my child maybe is really like just wanting to sit here and lie here and totally zoned out. It's because that's their way of really coping with the stress by shutting everything out and being zoned out on the TV or the device. But it's not that, you know, to teach them healthier ways of releasing their stress is a way to also help them to not then want TV as much as the tool, you know? I mean, I used to use TV to zone out all the time until I found other tools, and I don't crave TV anymore, you know, because those other tools feel so good to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and it helps you create some practices, some mindful practices while you're enjoying screen time.
Yes. Yes.
So that's really
Exactly.
cool that if you are is it, again, so again, it's not that technology is totally bad. It's that it's there. We have to realize however we are using it has an impact. So if
Yes.
we're using it in a way that is a crutch and disconnecting us from our child, our child is being disconnected from the world around them, and they're
Yeah.
so engrossed in it that those aren't healthy ways. That's not a healthy relationship with screen time.
Yeah.
And there are ways that you can use screen time that is healthy, that you can do together, or helps give you these practices, mindful practices as well. And I just want to clarify, these games you're talking about are not just interactive games that you play and
No, they don't
you
like get you all like jazzed up and give you, you know,
right
that sort of, I guess the games give you a big
dopamine.
dopamine hit, right? This
Yeah,
gives you a
exactly.
dopamine hit, but it gives you a serotonin hit because like your body's all relaxed and then you really enjoy
Right.
it. And then it's like some kids have a bit of resistance to it at first, but once they get into it, they're like, oh my gosh, I feel good. This is cool. And it's literally teaching, it's the feedback system of teaching you how to release your stress by getting into that heart rate variability where you're in coherence, you know, you're breathing in a calm rate,
Mhm.
and you're learning to relax your body. I think a lot of our kids need this with the rise of anxiety and the rise of mental health challenges. A lot of kids, because of always being on technology, let's use technology to calm our system down and be a little
Yeah,
bit off, you know.
yeah, this is
um,
awesome.
yeah. And then the second thing is like for a lot of kids who have, you know, sort of they have not as well integrated brains. So all of their parts of their brains are not working as well together, and
Mhm.
which then, you know, causes them to want to say tune out more because it's more stressful, right? Life
Right.
tends to be more stressful for them. Their nervous system is a little more heightened. There are technologies out there. There's a company that again is part of my husband's company called Integrated Listening Systems, and they have this amazing technology of music that really helps to rewire the brain, to bring it back into a calm state, to help the brain integrate better so that all parts work better together. So it's great for kids with autism, ADHD, sensory processing disorder, you know, even oppositional defiance, like
Mhm.
kids who are really have dysregulated emotional systems, that
Yeah.
they can use these technologies, these listening technologies, to help rewire their brain, so that they can experience life as not as stressful, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So some of our kids come in wired differently, and we want to honor that difference, but we also don't want them to suffer in with all the stress, and we don't want them to always just use technology to tune out and zone out. So when we help to understand that, when you know, to help that if we help integrate their brain better through these very positive, beneficial technologies, they can have a better experience of life.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So we'll put a link on the site to
Yes,
these apps that you talked about and these technologies you talked about. And if parents are interested, then they can find out more about it. Thank you for letting us know about that, Akshan. I really appreciate it.
my pleasure, my pleasure. It's helped us
Amazing.
a lot, so thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you so much. Have a great one.
thanks, you too. Take care.